Fluff Bites' streams are intended for mature audiences. This is an 18 plus space. Be prepared for disturbing or dark games and themes, difficult discussions, and interests outside of your comfort zone. Try to have an open mind and good faith. Please respect the space and treat yourself and others with respect. Welcome, one and all, to the Fluff by Entertainment System. Nice to see you here. Uh, I am Punkbite. I use she and they pronouns, and I'm a shark bunny. Hoping we have a good time. Welcome, new and old faces alike. Ada ada. Hope y'all are having a good one. Hello, Fufu Brigade. How are you? I don't think we've had the pleasure of you tuning into our streams in quite a while. Although, considering we didn't start streaming this year until like last week, you know, there was a big lapse. There's a big lapse in streams. Anywho, for folks new and old alike, hi, the Flip Out Entertainment System is now a simulcast because we can do that, and we decided that we wanted to continue doing that because it made the most sense for our reach. Um, and also because Twitch is still one of our main sources of income. Fun fact. That's okay. Missing streams happens. I haven't seen a lot of folks streams. I think the last stream of y'all's we saw was the one playing like Alien Isolation, which was a while ago. Um, we don't easily or naturally watch live streams. We actually got into them right around when we started becoming a streamer, so it's not like an automatic thing for us to automatically always have a stream up or something. Um, and also during our hiatus, we were just like trying to distance ourselves just a little bit so we wouldn't get hit with so much FOMO. Um, I talk about like I'm an addict. I mean, I am an addict, though I don't know if I want to call VTubing an addiction or streaming an addiction rather. Sometimes it feels like that. Um, Today's Fervent Friday is going to be a discussion about the Free Palestine protests that are happening on campuses around the world, actually, not just um, in East Coast American colleges. Um, our our nesting partner literally had a live stream up of folks protesting at a college in like France. So like it is a big deal right now. Um, we have shied away from like current day, or I should say, like trying to keep up with the I guess the what's the word? Um, like current events news. Like we talk about political stuff, but we tend to shy away from current events news. There's only a couple of times that we uh have a stream particularly for it. Um, and this is one of those times, and we'll probably be doing it more, especially as the world is really a lot right now. Obviously, we can't talk about everything that happens in the world. We still have other shit to do. However, sometimes we like to share what we know because we can never turn off our critical eye of politics, damn near. So, like, Whereas we have friends that kind of like have an easy time disengaging and not knowing exactly what's happening, but knowing it's bad. Like we're the one friend in our like friend group. Well, actually, that's not true. We used to be the one friend in our friend group who had like the most political information about what was happening. Now it's a toss up. And we know plenty of people who know it more than us for sure. Though we know a lot of politically minded people and activists and just people who care about what's happening in a general sense, not just a um, I don't say global politics sense, but honestly, the fact that we talk about intersectionality and stress intersectionality so much, I think, is very much apparent in today's topic, considering this affects like a lot of things. Um, I mean, obviously, in a more selfish way, like like supply lines and the cost of living and stuff like that. But also, like people are dying. If you care about that, obviously. Sorry, I didn't eat breakfast, so I'm having lunch now. Don't worry, we won't be talking about the protest all stream, but because we still have some gaming to do, we still want to be able to chill and kick it and have fun. But um, I'm kind of like the hawk. I'm always political, but I can like put in the background too. I know we have a small platform, but it's nice to be able to talk about these things. And I also noticed because our nursing partner was also asking for like some video essays or like some type of content covering the current protest. There weren't really. There were like some 20, 10-minute type things, especially from like a leftist perspective, because almost anything you look up on YouTube for Palestine protests, like videos, they're either going to be live stream of like stuff that's happening on campus, or it's going to be news reports. And across the political spectrum, all the major news networks are framing it, of course, as a pro-Palestine protest and not a anti-genocide protest. You know, and just like in the Black Lives Matter protests, they the prevailing narrative by news media has generally been, oh, these protests have gotten out of hand and they get violent, and so the police had to be called. When in actuality, the police were called in response and continue to escalate situations, as they tend to do. If you have any familiarity with social justice or I don't know, history even. I know a lot of people glorify the past and how, civil rights were won. Like, from Martin Luther King to Harvey Milk, there's definitely a way of glorifying the past and being like, oh, so now we're like post racism or, post imperialism. We are not post imperialism. We are super not post imperialism. Um, we've talked about it before about how Martin Luther King and other leaders, especially ones that had a message prevailing of like nonviolence in any way, are like more visible when talking about like U.S. history and stuff. And of course, like we're taught propaganda in schools and shit, right? But there's a thing that it might take a while to notice as you grow up that current event social justice movements are often painted with like a sort of malice. This not even just the protests in recent years, even stuff back in like what was it like the 80s, early 90s with like the Rodney King protests, like power always tries to focus on like infrastructure and like oh businesses were damaged, and it's like Martin Luther King said the rioting is the language of the oppressed, the language of the unheard, right? And so like the state doesn't want doesn't want the type of pushback that will actually cause the state to reconsider what they're doing. But the protests right now aren't actually about the state specifically, but it is actually important to note because, and actually, let me rewind a little bit because I recognize that not a lot of people may know about the Israel Palestine situation other than a lot of people are getting fucking bombed. Um, and that's fair to that just being your knowledge. Like, bad things are happening. There is a war. It's not really a war, it is a massacre. Um, and that cannot be overstated, I feel. Nice to see you, Majora. I'm glad you're here. Rubber bullets are always supposed to be bounced off the ground to reduce velocity. They're almost never used that way. Oh yeah. I'm pretty sure that they will only use rubber bullets off of like surfaces if they were just like, oh yeah, how can I make a cool trick shot like Ocelot?
Put teriyaki sauce on my pizza.
I put the barbecue sauce on your pizza.
I see.
I thought you liked the barbecue sauce.
I like
That's
the flavor of the pizza itself.
that's fair. I'm sorry.
I was just confused. I was like, did they just like dip this in soy sauce? Like, what the fuck? It's so soggy.
I'm sorry. Fuck. I was so excited that we had the pizza in the soy sauce in the barbecue sauce at the same time. And I was like, oh yeah, you must want this.
Oh, obvious.
I got really excited and stream was starting. Mine was racing. But yeah, I'm not gonna give a whole history lesson. There's plenty of sources to know like the history of what's been happening over time. But generally, it has been a touchy subject, just the state of Israel in general, because of the threat of being labeled anti-Semitic. Now, this is rhetoric and dog whistles can affect both sides because it is very common for like right wingers to say something like, "Oh, they're labeling me racist to silence me," or some such, or transphobic or homophobic or xenophobic or what have you. But what's happening in America right now is that a lot of stuff is being labeled anti-Semitic that is not anti-Semitic. It's not anti-Jewish people. It's anti the state of Israel. For a comparison, if someone was anti-imperialist, as you probably are if you're anti-Israel, you probably are also anti the state of the United States. And that makes sense because there's a lot of bad stuff that happens. They're officially sanctioned, and there's an ongoing trans genocide right now as well. So it it is very useful to be able to use social justice language and weaponize it to make it seem like you're on the right side of history and make the people who are descending against you seem like the bad guys. Famously, the Nazis named themselves the Nationalist Socialist Party. They were not socialists in any way. So it isn't a surprise that you're going to hear continually, as has been the case, that when people talk about anti genocide, anti Israeli bombings, and stuff that is like super horrific that I can't show without getting all sorts of age restricted. But stuff from like camping out at where humanitarian aid is going to be dropped and firing upon refugees. So, I mean, they've already bombed like literally every fucking hospital. Um, but a lot of the escalation recently, um, I can't exactly say why. Even though it's been going on for years, why right now, this current moment, it's like so center stage. Other than a lot of people being just a lot more aware and more willing to talk about it, and the the escalation of the the destruction and killing. And having just seen that one movie, that one Miyazaki movie at the last community night that we had on Discord, was it Grave of the Fireflies? Like the trauma that like civilians face when military occupations happen, when imperialism happens, um, and shit like that is just like it's on my mind a lot. Um, and it's easy to forget when you have everything else going on, but it's understandable that certain people want to look away. Um, what has been a big deal, especially with the coming U.S. election coming up, is people being like, "Well, Trump is going for office again, so we need to back Biden." And people have been mentioning that even though Trump is worse, especially aesthetically, a lot of the same shit that Trump will do, Biden is already doing. There's still kids in cages. There's still like the U.S. government is still backing Israel, giving them weapons they're using to hurt people. And it's and it's your right as a citizen to disagree with your country, and a lot of people disagree with what America's doing right now, regardless of who is in charge. It's almost like even with the president, it's not just the one person who represents the whole like political body. It is an organism, and the organism is is doing some bad stuff. It is hurting a lot of people. You know, uh in all the ways that I wish I could talk about without going on for hours and hours. However, because people have realized that there are a lot of Israeli backed companies and companies that refuse to acknowledge the genocide, a lot of people are deciding to pull away because, especially in terms of actions that you can do that might create change, that does not include protesting, does not include putting your neck out. A lot of people recognize that sometimes pulling out financially and boycotting is effective. And I mean, on larger scales, it definitely is effective because of like tariffs. If you don't know what a tariff is, it's like uh, not allowing a country to trade with you or penalizing trade. Um, Actually, other countries did those sort of things to Russia because of the Russia Ukraine conflict, right? Um, but they're not doing that to Israel. And there's been a lot of countries that have been trying to stop weapons getting into Israeli hands or make them take longer and make them take like longer routes to get to their destinations. And there's a lot of nonviolent ways people are resisting, including the college campus protests. Um, we're gonna be not showing too much graphic material, but there will be some disturbing imagery. Um, just so you know, a lot of people are pulling away from companies that are basically supporting the genocide. And in that same vein, a lot of colleges in the United States actually also support Israel, which is insane when you think about it, especially in terms of like weapons manufacturing and stuff like that. Because it's like, what? It's a college. But there's all sorts of like research and development stuff. And colleges, if you don't know, are like kind of the bastions of a lot of scientific and engineering breakthroughs. There's a lot of people who are just like in a position to teach at a college who are only doing it so they have access to whatever research purposes or tools that they would like. Because anyone who's tried to make a video essay and research it will tell you that if you're trying to find academic resources, you're going to have to pay up. So if you're not a member of an institution, you're gonna have to pay individually or like some sort of like monthly rate to be able to get access to a lot of stuff that should be free to the public, and it's not. There's a lot of knowledge that's being paywalled, but also just some of the best facilities for a lot of stuff are at colleges. And colleges do hold a very important place culturally, especially in America, because America has had protests, notably for stuff like Vietnam, that was spearheaded by college protesters. And we have talked in the past about how youth is important for change and why there's the specific position that younger people are in, the older people, i.e., adults, are not as able to do. Generally, because of the whole like capitalism has a gun to your head and you need to make money to, live, pay rent and pay for groceries. So, generally, a lot of people might not unionize because they're scared that they'll get fired and they still need to feed their family, for example. So, before you are dependent on this coercive system, to stay alive or to participate in this coercive system to stay alive rather, you have a little bit more freedom. Some people generally say, what is it, young people, or when you're younger, you have the ability to make mistakes, and you should be making mistakes because you'll not be able to make those same mistakes with the same level of consequences later in life, which is very true. And a lot of people use that in an infantilistic way, honestly. And a lot of people might even use, oh, this person's future as like a way to justify lighter punishment. There's been like sexual assault scandals on campuses by students, on other students, for example, and it was argued that, oh, this person's only like 18 or 19, they have their whole life ahead of them. Like the potential of youth is so powerful that it changes lives, it kills people, it saves people. And there is a romanticization of colleges, and anyone who's gone to college on and lived like the college life, even if they didn't like it, understand that it's a different world. We still have dreams of the college that we dropped out of and desperately miss that part of our life. Even if we went to school again, we would not have that experience again. And it wouldn't make financial sense to. Living in dorms is actually super expensive. Meal plans are a scam, and that's not what this stream is about. Hey, Taco Legs, how's it going? Also, hey, Sauce. Oh, yeah, Sauce? Yo, what up? Yeah, nice. It's nice to see some familiar faces and some old faces. Cool, cool, cool. All right. Um, yeah. Colleges are a particular like hold particular power institutionally for like whatever country that they're in. They are generally, especially like college towns are kind of like the center of public life in that region. Sometimes colleges will bring in revenue to like say like big schools that have like really big sports teams, for example, bring in lots of tourists, and that generates a lot of money for the community. Colleges are so important. So it makes total sense that there is always this push and pull of uh, policing what students can do and like who can speak on college campuses. There's been a lot of speakers or even just like comedians coming to college campuses who have pulled out because there was a big student protest saying we don't want you here and stuff like that. And there's a big push to see the exploration of humanities and liberal arts as lesser and not important. You'll see this in lower education as well. Lower education, higher education. I hate that dynamic. Um, with the whole critical race theory thing, with books banning stuff like Moss and stuff that talks about, and even stuff that talks about slavery and racism and homophobia and trying to strip that from the already very, very bones bare curriculum that folks get taught as they're growing up. That's why like conservatives are pulling kids out of schools to, homeschool them so that they won't get exposed to things. Even with like transphobia and stuff, that's also a thing where it's like, oh, I don't want uh, my child to know that queer people exist, because as soon as they have that knowledge if they're queer, then it's gonna be in their back pocket, and people are afraid of their family being queer because they want to control them, and it all just wraps into itself. Is what I'm saying. I lost track of myself there. Let's get into the meat and potatoes. I'm gonna try to start saying meat and potatoes instead of nitty gritty. We're gonna get into the meat and potatoes of what's been happening. So let's see here. On CNN, 8:30 a.m., April 25th. So about a week ago. What we know about the protests erupting on college campuses across America. New York, CNN. College campuses across the United States have erupted with pro-Palestinian protests, and school administrators are trying, and largely failing, to defuse the situation. Tensions on U.S. college campuses have risen since Hamas's October 7th attack. Oh yeah, that's how things escalated. When militants killed about 1,200 people and took more than 200 hostages. Israel's retaliatory assault on Gaza has killed more than 34,000 people, according to its health ministry. Fun fact, Israel has bombed places that they knew hostages were in. They've also bombed hospitals and claimed that they were being used as fronts for Hamas. It's actually something that also happened during the Iraq War. It's not a new thing to be like, oh yes, they're in these civilian buildings, so we have to bomb the civilian buildings. Oh my god. Reports of anti-Semitic acts have surged across America, and particularly on campuses since October 7th. Islamophobia has run rampant too. The recent surge in protests have inflamed those tensions, forcing leadership to decide when free speech on campus crosses a line and becomes threatening. We're gonna see a pattern going forward where you're not gonna be able to tell what's anti-Semitism and what's not, because when these mainstream news sources say it, they don't have a lot of proof, or they have very, very small anecdotal evidence, and you'll see. Several schools have called the police on protesters, leading to arrests of hundreds across multiple campuses, probably thousands at this point. When did the current conflict start? The situation escalated last week at Columbia University. Oh yeah, Columbia University was like a big hotbed for this. And when I mentioned it's not just on East Coast colleges, I was directly referencing the fact that a lot of news and a lot of big attention has been on Columbia University and similar Ivy League universities. Fun fact: um, we used to want to go to Columbia. That was like our dream school up there with like Wesleyan. Like, you don't even understand how weird this is. Like, gosh, if we were a Zoomer, we would, or I don't know, did they cast alphas? If we were a Zoomer, we probably, and we had got in, we would probably be in the encampment right now, which is weird to think about. At least I hope. At least I hope. We really regret not going to New York when we were in college on the East Coast for the like Wall Street protests. Like, that was such an important time. I mean, yeah, it didn't actually affect change, but I think it would have been important. It really would have made us radicaler sooner. Because when we were in college, we were definitely still liberal. I mean, we were getting a liberal arts degree, for crying out loud. The situation escalated last week at Columbia University when the university's president, Namat Mingchuk Shafiq, testified before a House committee about the school's response to changes of campus anti Semitism. A pro Palestinian protest kicked off on campus at the same time. Following her testimony, Shafiq requested in a letter released by the university that the New York City Police Department remove people who were encamped on the south lawn of the campus who were in violation of the university's rules and policies and trespassing. More than 100 people were arrested, according to law enforcement. The encampments were organized by Columbia University Apartheid Divest, CUAD, a student led coalition of more than 100 organizers. Sorry, organizations? More than 100 organizations, including Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voice for Peace. This is also a thing you're going to notice. There's going to be a lot of claims of anti Semitism, but then a lot of Jewish protesters, which is going to very much make it obvious that the story is being pushed a certain way. Including Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voice for Peace, to protest what they described as the university's continued financial investment in corporations that profit from Israeli apartheid, genocide, and military occupation of Palestine, according to its news release. What else is happening? Since last Thursday, other college campuses have faced similar protests and encampments, as well as arrests. Pro Palestinian encampments have been set up at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Emerson College, the University of Texas at Austin, the University of Michigan, and the University of California, Berkeley. On Wednesday, police arrested nearly 100 protesters at the University of Southern California after a dispersal order. Yale University police arrested at least 45 protesters Monday and charged them with criminal trespassing after they refused orders to leave, though dozens of protesters remained Tuesday morning. Harvard University closed Harvard Yard, and officials at the school suspended a pro Palestinian student organization for allegedly violating school policies. I should switch to the other screen. What am I doing? There we go. That's better. Harvard University closed Harvard Yard, and officials at the school suspended a pro Palestinian student organization for allegedly violating school policies. Meanwhile, 9 people were arrested Tuesday at the University of Minnesota's Twin Cities campus after they formed an encampment that went against school policy. Students, faculty, and staff at the University of New Mexico peacefully protested Monday in support of Gaza, the university said in a statement Tuesday. More than 100 people were arrested Wednesday at Emerson College in Boston during a pro-Palestinian protest, according to the Boston Police Department. I do appreciate them trying to be at least just saying the facts here. People were arrested. Yeah, at these places. Okay. Ah, such danger. Whoa, in Austin, Texas. Okay. What do they want? Pro-Palestinian protesters at Columbia said they won't disperse until the school agrees to cut ties with Israeli academic institutions and commits to a complete divestment of its funds from entities connected to Israel, among other demands. Protesters at other campuses are making similar demands, calling on campuses to divest from companies that sell weapons, construction equipment, technology services, and other items to Israel. Columbia officials warned earlier this week that the encampment violates school rules but did not provide specific disciplinary consequences. Officials also pushed back on assertions from protesters that the school threatened it would bring in the National Guard to help address the pro-Palestinian protest encampment. A thing that I am thinking about. More recently, or I guess in the last couple of years, because of stuff I mentioned in schools like middle schools and high schools, like critical race theory, alarmism, and like transphobia, and like bathroom bills and stuff like that. There have been student protests at high schools and middle schools, but for me, it begs the question: why weren't there militarized police at those protests or walkouts? And I already know the answer, or at least I think I do, that it wasn't disruptive enough. Yes, they walked out of school, and there was a lot of media attention on it. but high profile institutions are probably losing money and like support and having people pull out because they are basically being put on blast. You know, it looks bad for the school, and that's how you hurt people in capitalism. You have to hurt their bottom dollar, unfortunately. I say unfortunately only in the sense that like there's so much stuff that feels like it should work or should help, and it just doesn't. And sometimes boycotts are not useful. Sometimes they're not enough. And honestly, that's why the term diversity of tactics is important, because you can't just attack on one front. Um, but I'll say what some others have said, and what I think we first heard from the YouTuber Radical Reviewer, that if you're being repressed, then you're doing something good, because there wouldn't be a huge like militaristic response if you weren't fucking something up. So like, unfortunately, when the police are like hitting you with shields and throwing tear gas and stuff at you, it's like you gotta you gotta be able to um, recognize that they are doing so because the noise that you're making is doing something to power that they don't want. So it's important that even though you get demoralized from these attempts to stomp things out, the fact that they are trying to stomp things out so strongly and powerfully is a testament to it working. So, in no uncertain terms, I would say what is happening is good because of the response. Though my heart goes out to everyone hurt, and I'm sure there are people who might even lose their lives during this protest. And I hate the fact that those words just left my mouth, in the sense that there's no amount of optimism in my body that makes me think otherwise. I mean, as rubber bullets and pepper spray and stuff has already been used, a lot of people will be injured or hurt for life. Just That's just what it is. Columbia officials warned earlier this week that the encampment violates school rules. Okay. Jewish reaction. Passover, a major Jewish holiday, began this week, heightening fears among a number of Jewish students who have heard anti Semitic comments at some of the protests. The atmosphere was so charged that Columbia officials announced students attend classes and even possibly take exams virtually starting Monday. I think that that's interesting. It is interesting to see something like this happen in the world right now, because the internet didn't wasn't there during the Vietnam protests, and it definitely would have been interesting to see. Passover, a major Jewish holiday, began this week, heightening fears amongst a number of Jewish students who have heard anti-Semitic comments at some of the protests. The atmosphere was so charged that Columbia officials announced students can attend classes and even possibly take exams virtually starting Monday. Underscoring concerns about student safety, Rabbi Eli Brecher, a rabbi associated with Columbia University's Orthodox Union Jewish Learning Initiative on campus, sent a WhatsApp message to a group of about 300 mostly Orthodox Jewish students, strongly recommending they return home and remain there. Belcher wrote that recent events at the university have made it clear that Columbia University's public safety and the NYPD cannot guarantee Jewish students' safety. Throughout Passover, there will be a police presence at the Craft Center, a Jewish cultural center shared by Columbia and Bernard. And campus public safety will provide walking escorts to and from the building starting Monday, according to an email from Brian Cohen, the center's executive director. Chabad, a Jewish organization at the university, said on Facebook they've hired additional security to protect students during Passover. They said that they were horrified of what they had witnessed last night on and near Columbia's campus, and still plan to host Passover celebrations on campus. A group of Jewish and non-Jewish students gathered at the encampment to celebrate Passover Seder Monday night. Columbia student Cameron Jones told CNN, "I am Jewish, and to me, Passover symbolizes perseverance and resilience. I think this encampment represents those two ideals because we have seen the university take countless measures to try to suppress our student activism. And here is us persevering through that." What are political leaders saying? On Wednesday, House Speaker Mike Johnson called on Columbia University's president to resign during a tense news conference where the crowd would repeatedly interrupt the speaker and at times loudly booed him and other GOP lawmakers who were with him, and they stood at the microphones on Columbia's campus. Fuck. Wait, I'm not scared. Wait, no. There we go. That's awesome. Yo, what up, Issy? Welcome to the stream. We can't just allow this kind of hatred and anti-Semitism to flourish on our campuses, and it must be stopped in its tracks. Those who are perpetuating this violence should be arrested. I am here today joining my colleagues in calling on President Safik to resign if she cannot immediately bring order to this chaos, Johnson said. What? How would that help? Yes. Someone. Because they want someone more militant to take her place. Duh. He was joined by the New York representatives, Mike Lawyer, Nicole Milotakis, and others in the New York GOP delegation. Representative Alexandria Orozco-Cortez, a Democrat from New York, condemned the way administrators like Safik have handled the issue on behalf of the student protesters. Her comment came a day after fellow New York Democrat Representative Jamal Bowman accused Columbia of caving to right-wing pressure. Earlier this week, a spokesperson for Joe Biden said that he was, of course, aware of pro-Palestinian protests of Royal College campuses across the country. U.S. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona said Tuesday that he is deeply concerned about incidents of anti-Semitism at Columbia University and pointed to a previously open civil rights investigation into the university for violations involving anti-Semitic harassment. What will happen to Safik? National political leaders, including Speaker Johnson, ratcheted up the pressure for Safik to step down. Safik is an Egyptian-born academic and economic policy expert who has been president of the Ivy League University since July of 2023. So not even a year. Safik's family fled Egypt in the 1960s when the country was in the midst of a political and economic turmoil, according to Columbia, and was previously the president of the London School of Economics and Political Science. She was raised in the American South. The Columbia University Board of Trustees released a statement Wednesday saying they strongly support President Safik. The board said it is urgently working with her to resolve the unrest on campus and rebuild the bonds of our community. The growing unrest on college campuses, along with a rise in anti-Semitism, has led to numerous congressional hearings and, at least in part, to the resignation of two Ivy League presidents. Whoa, okay. Claudia Gay at Harvard University and Liz McGall at the University of Pennsylvania. Whoa. So yeah, things are happening. Let's see. I'm gonna show you a little bit more of the liberal side of things before I show you other parts of this. Let's see what our President Biden had to say. Since he's not Trump, it should be like totally like, milk and honey, right? I'm in a car on the way home from grocery shopping. Well, you can pretend you're on talk radio with Fluffbite. I guess I'm basically NPR now? Weird. Biden denounces violence on campus, breaking silence after a rash of arrests. The President Biden defended the right to dissent, but made clear that he believed too many of the demonstrations had gone beyond the bounds of free speech. President Biden defended the right of demonstrators to protest peacefully, but condemned the chaos that has prevailed in many colleges nationwide. By Peter Baker, traveling with President Biden aboard Air Force One yesterday. President Biden broke days of silence on Thursday to finally speak out on the wave of protests on American college campuses against Israel's war in Gaza that have inflamed much of the country, denouncing violence and anti-Semitism, even as he defended the right to peaceful dissent. In a previously unscheduled televised statement from the White House, Mr. Biden offered a forceful condemnation of students and other protesters who, in his view, have taken their grievances over the war too far, but he rejected Republican calls to deploy the National Guard to rein in the campuses. There's the right to protest, but not the right to cause chaos. Mr. Biden said into cameras in his first personal remarks on the campus Friday in 10 days, people have the right to get an education, the right to get a degree, the right to walk across the campus safely without the fear of being attacked. Anti Semitism, he added, has no place in America. I think the president is right. Anti Semitism has no place in America. But imperialism seems to have a lot of space in America. The president's comments came as universities across the nation continue to struggle to restore order. Police officers in riot gear arrested about 200 people as they cleared a protest encampment at the University of California, Los Angeles, while other officers removed demonstrators occupying a library at Portland State University in Oregon. Activists erected 30 tents in the University of Wisconsin-Madison a day after the police removed tents and detained 34 people. The confrontations on Thursday followed a tense 24 hours during which police officers made arrests at Fordham University's Manhattan campus, the University of Texas at Dallas, Dartmouth College in New Hampshire, Tulane University in New Orleans, among other places. As of Thursday, the campus unrest had led to nearly 2,000 arrests at dozens of academic institutions in the last 2 weeks, according to the New York Times tally. So, as of right now, we can say that at least 2,000 people have been arrested for saying that genocide is bad. And saying that in the form of protesting. Nice to see it, Sonny. Enjoy the lurk. Administrators at colleges, including Brown University. Damn, yeah, this is like a lot of top tier universities. Like, we applied to a couple of these. Excuse me. Oh, excuse me again. Administrators at some colleges, including Brown University in Rhode Island and Northwestern University in Illinois, opted to avoid conflict by striking deals with pro-Palestinian protesters to bring a peaceful end to their encampments. Oh. So there is a precedent for victory here. Agreements that have drawn harsh criticism from some Jewish leaders. The protests have erupted in response to Israel's war in Gaza since October 7th, the Hamas-led terrorist attack, killing 12,000 people in Israel and resulting in more than 200 taken hostage. More than 34,000 people in Gaza have been killed since then, according to authorities there, including both Hamas combatants and civilians. The protesters have demanded that the Biden administration cut off arms to Israel and that their schools divest from companies linked to Israel. But in many cases, the demonstrations have included anti-Semitic rhetoric and harassment targeting Jewish students. I don't know about that one, Chief. Some of those sympathetic to the protesters pushed back against administrators for resorting to police action. The Columbia University chapter of the American Association of University Professors on Thursday called for a condemnation of Namat Safiq, the university president, after a police operation to remove students occupying Hamilton Hall and resulted in more than 100 arrests. Armed counterterrorism police on campus, student arrests, and harsh discipline were not the only path through this crisis, the group said. The images of arrests and clash have come to dominate the political debate in Washington in recent days as Republicans seek to position themselves as defenders of Jewish students and portray Democrats and university leaders as soft on anti-Semitism. A day after the House passed a bipartisan measure seeking to codify a broader definition of anti-Semitism, it's a federal law that could be its own stream, honestly. They're labeling a lot of stuff as anti-Semitism that is just anti-Israel, anti-genocide sentiment in the same way that Antifa is considered a terrorist organization. Just so you know. A broader definition of anti-Semitism in the federal education policy, with 70 Democrats and 21 Republicans voting no. A group of 20 Senate Republicans introduced their own version of the resolution. Quote, anti-Semitism is rearing its ugly head at college campuses across our nation, said the bill's sponsor, Senator Tim Scott, Republican of South Carolina and a possible presidential running mate for former President Donald Trump. Jewish students are being targeted with violence and harassment, and the university presidents and administrators who should be defending them are caving to the radical mob and allowing chaos to spread. Mr. Trump weighed in on social media. This is a radical left revolution taking place in our country. Oh, God, I wish. He wrote in all capital letters. As the confrontation at UCLA escalated, where is crooked Joe Biden? Where is Governor Newscum? The danger to our country is from the left, not from the right. He screamed as he turned into a corn cob. Governor Gavin Newsom of California, a Democrat, issued his own statement on Wednesday. The right to free speech does not extend to inciting violence, vandalism, or lawlessness on campus, he said. That was a formulation of Mr. Biden that Mr. Biden advanced during his televised comments on Thursday morning before leaving the White House for a day-long trip to North Carolina, where he met with relatives of 4 law enforcement officers killed in Charlotte on Monday, and later gave a speech in Wilmington announcing plans to replace lead pipes. Busy guy, that Joe Biden. Destroying property is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law, the president said. Oh my God, against the law. Like, I don't know, dumping tea in a harbor? Vandalism, trespassing, breaking windows, shutting down campus, forcing the cancellation of classes and graduations? None of this is a peaceful protest. Threatening people, intimidating people, instilling fear in people is not peaceful protest. It's against the law. Dissent is essential to democracy, but dissent must never lead to disorder or to denying the rights of others so students can finish the semester in their college education so they can be just normal cogs in the machine. Mr. Biden has been pushing for an agreement between Israel and Hamas that would end the combat, at least temporarily. But a deal has remained elusive. Under a U.S.-sponsored proposal on the table, Israel will enter a ceasefire for 6 weeks and release hundreds of Palestinians held in its prisons, while Hamas will free 33 of the more than 100 hostages it is still holding. Doesn't feel equal at all. The president and his team hope that such a first stage would lead to a longer cessation of hostilities and the release of more hostages, as well as more food, medicine, and other aid to ease the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But American officials said that while Israel has agreed to the plan, Hamas has so far refused. The president's 4-minute statement came after some Democrats, frustrated by his reluctance to speak out, pressed him to publicly address the campus uprisings. Uprisings? Gosh, that's a word. Until Thursday, Mr. Biden had offered only a couple of sentences in response to reporter questions on April 22nd that even Democrats considered too equivocal and otherwise left it to his spokespeople to express his views. Republicans have cascaded him for not weighing in himself. Mr. Biden, to be frank, a broken clock is right twice a day. Coward shit. Mr. Biden implied that his critics were simply being opportunistic. In moments like this, there are always those who rush in to score political points, he said, but this isn't a moment for politics. It's a moment for clarity. So let me be clear. Peaceful protest in America. Violent protest is not protected. Peaceful protest is. Protest that doesn't change the status quo. And claiming some in his party, though, In calming some of his party, though, Mr. Biden took heat from others to the political left. In their view, he employed none of the nuance he expressed in 2020 when otherwise peaceful protests after the police killing of George Floyd got out of control, and Mr. Biden acknowledged root causes of the anger, even while condemning violence. He could have made some effort to do the same today, said Matt Duss, a former foreign policy advisor to Senator Bernie Sanders, the Democratic Socialist from Vermont. Instead, he chose to amplify a right-wing caricature. Unfortunately, it's consistent with an overall policy approach which shows little regard for Palestinian perspectives or Palestinian lives. In his statement, Mr. Biden emphasized that he will always defend free speech, even if those protesting his own support even for those protesting his own support for Israel's war. But he made clear that he thought too many of the demonstrations had gone beyond the bounds of simple speech. Let's be clear about this as well, he said. There should be no place on any campus, no place in America for anti Semitism or threats of violence against Jewish students. There's no place for hate speech or violence of any kind, whether it's anti Semitism, Islamophobia, or discrimination against Arab Americans or Palestinian Americans. In response to questions by reporters, Mr. Biden said he would not change his Middle East policy as a result of the protests. Asked as he left the room if the National Guard should intervene, he simply said, no. Okay, we're almost done with a liberal perspective. Like, this is getting really, really painful. I hope you can understand my sarcasm while reading a lot of that, because I need you to understand. I really, really need you to understand. This is just, you know? Middle of a workout routine. Good time to get some news. We guess they want our code to be illegal in the US. Works for us. Do you think that'll keep military contractors from using our code, though? Probably. I hope so. Like military contractors. Okay, into some video coverage from Fox News.
Campus, a student wearing a Star of David necklace is denied entry to the campus by masked pro-Palestinian activists. Watch this.
We're going this way. You guys have closed the entrance. We are UCLA students. I have my ID right here. I'm being blocked off, not by the security guard, but by you two. You three. Oh, look, they're making their burger while I'm going this way. Excuse me. This is what they do. Everybody, look at this. Look at this. I'm a UCLA student. I deserve to go here. We pay tuition. This is our school. And they're not letting me walk in.
Unbelievable, but it happened, and this is the man that it happened to. Eli Civis joins us now. Eli, you looked like you knew what was about to happen.
It's so amazing how clearly he has a Star of David there. Like, he's just right there. Wow.
Happen, and it took all your composure that you could muster not to bull your way in. Can you bring us back to that moment?
Of course, absolutely. Thank you for having me. So I take the same path to class every single day. And when I got there, it was blocked off by these students, not a security guard, but by these students. I showed them my ID and I said, this is the way I entered a class, please let me in. When they refused, I quickly understood what was happening. I handed my phone to my fellow Jewish friend, and he started filming so we could document exactly what was happening.
And who were those people who were denying you access to your space?
They could have been UCLA students. They could not have been. I honestly would not be surprised if they were not UCLA students, but they were part of the pro-Hamas mob that has taken over our school.
The pro-Hamas mob? Dude, are you serious? Fucking Christ.
Were you tempted just to divide them? I mean, because you're larger than they are. It looks like they're mostly women. Could you have just gotten through them, or did you decide not to do that?
We are for peace, and we will never barge through because we know that we're better than them in that sense. And yeah, could I have? Absolutely. But I would rather have documented that so we could show the world exactly what is going on in universities in the United States.
Lawrence?
You know, Eli, I'm curious, and I posed this question to our anchors this morning on the couch. What would happen if this happens in any other minority group? Do you think that there would have been more outrage over this incident, Eli?
Absolutely, I do. I also think if it was an encampment that is not a pro-Hamas encampment, for example, say there was a KKK encampment happening, it would have been shut down immediately.
Immediately comparing protesters to a hate group. This is gosh, I'm gonna sound like an conspiracy theorist here, but this is a fucking psyop. There's no way. And just for a record, I was showing this also because when I saw this, it flabbergasted me, but also in the sense that, like, so little time was shown. I don't know if that's the whole video. I don't know if that's the whole story. I feel like there's something being left out. And even instigating it to the point of, like, they could have not been students. Like, just... Okay, to be fair, To be absolutely fair, there are people who have publicly said that that they weren't a student and they got onto campus and did some type of protest stuff, but not, at least from what I've seen, the people saying that have been wanting to see what it's like during the Chaz, and people wanting to see what it's like to see like this socialist encampment or whatever. Like, people wanted to see what was happening and hear from the students' mouths, and not just reporters. And I think that that's important too. And to label anyone not there as like some like opportunist, I think is unfair and very bad faith. Very bad faith. I do understand, and I do think that because of all the everything right now, I don't doubt there's anti-Semitism in America. Of that, there is no doubt. But because Republicans are anti-Semitic, but also pro-imperialist, they kind of win either way. They still have the fucking replacement theories and the Jewish lizard theory type shit. Like, they're still on that. If you see any Republicans being like, "Oh no, the anti-Semitism," they actually real. They do not care. Welcome back, Taco. Classic Fox News, real. So I was just, it's the same tactics, delegitimizing the protests, comparing them to hate groups or terrorist organizations. This is gross. And like any actual anti-Semitism is going to be hard to like actually find out about without doing like a whole ton of research. But also, you'll notice, or maybe you haven't noticed, that they keep talking about like violent anti-Semitism, but they don't have any proof of anyone who's been harmed for being against the protests. I wonder why that might be. Actually, just in case someone's like, "Oh, but you didn't play the whole clip." It's only 5 minutes. We can
and
finish.
I think this really shows what's going on here.
I finished my
at
pizza
college
anyway.
universities in the United States, that we are allowing these students to spread their hatred, their bigotry, and their anti-Semitism against Jewish students all around the world. And many Jewish students, feel very unsafe.
Eli, do you think they even know what they're protesting? Do they understand the history of this region? Do they understand October 7th?
Oh, and they're also claiming that the students are ignorant and don't know what they're actually protesting. Oh, they're just misguided youth.
I think that a lot of them do understand, and they still choose to say what they say. We go to the #1 public school in the world. These people are smart. They are educated. They know what they're saying. They know what an intifada is. They want an intifada. They want to see the mass genocide of Jews.
You know, Eli, it's got to be complicated being you on that campus right now, because I'm sure some of the people in that group, or some of the people who support that group, either in public or private, they're your classmates. Some of them might be your teachers, and they don't, from what I've seen in some of these demonstrations, they don't like the fact that you're Jewish.
That's exactly correct. I mean, listen, I'm a theater major. I go into class and I see people wearing keffiyehs, and I have to work with them in a small classroom setting for the next 3.5 years. It's hard. I get dirty looks walking down the hallways.
I wonder if he has a reputation for being pro-Israel and nobody likes him for that reason.
It's people are starting to recognize my face. They know who I am. I see people looking at me in dirty ways. But also Jewish students walk up to me and they thank me for what I'm doing. So as long as I am constantly advocating for the Jewish people, I feel like we're getting somewhere. We're doing good in this world.
Eli, what do your parents say? Are they worried for your safety?
Absolutely they are. I mean, just yesterday, I came back to my dorm room and somebody found out where I live, and they wrote on my whiteboard, "Shame on you." And I just think that this is the start of something that's going to escalate very, very quickly.
That's not violence, though. It's shame on you. It's not even vulgar.
Because my face is really getting out there, and I would not be surprised if somebody tries something in the next couple days.
Eli, keep us up to date, but the last question is, aren't these fundamentally anti-American initiatives too?
Absolutely. They constantly advocate for the destruction of our beautiful country. They burn the American flag. They are super anti-America. They are anti our government. They're anti-democracy.
Yes, yes, we're anti our government. What the hell do you mean? Where are? Also, understand that it's. If you're going to one of the most expensive, prestigious schools in the country, you have a decent amount of privilege. So, like, I don't know. It's just, it really disgusts me. It also disgusts me that I shared a major with this guy. And just, oh gosh. I'm not gonna lie, I hope he gets wedgie when he gets back to his fucking dorm.
And shame on them for...
Sup, Del?
Shame on UCLA and shame on actually all college administrations for allowing them to continue what they're doing, because this is no longer about freedom of speech. Right. This is now straight up about promoting aggression and hatred against Jewish people.
Eli, your star is rising. You're on the right side of this. We will stay with you.
And
thank you very much.
And you actually do not wear a mask on campus.
Right. You're proud of who you are.
Absolutely not. I'm proud of who I am.
Because, you know, COVID's over, right? We shouldn't wear a mask. They mean the stuff that the people in the video who were blocking him had on. Those are the type of face coverings he meant. But there's been a lot of photos that I've seen of people that just have masks on because COVID's still a thing, you know? Okay, I actually have some pictures. There's been some news, some propaganda circulating, basically denying the legitimacy of the protest from the grounds of it's been infiltrated by opportunists or some sort of professionals, you know, some type of inside job, and they're doing stuff to make it so that it's more successful because they want to see, like, America fall or whatever. Cops don't know this is a bike lock because they have never investigated a bike theft in their lives. Commenting on, Deputy Commissioner Tariq Shepard shows the chains used to secure Hamilton Hall at Columbia University. Quote, this is not what students bring to school. This is what professionals bring to campuses and universities. The prevailing narrative I've seen from leftists talking about this has literally been, actually, if you live in New York, is actually really common for people to get their bike stolen, and police are notorious for not giving a fuck and not really investigating or doing anything to help with bike theft. So people, especially students who need their bikes to get around, get really heavy duty locks. It's almost just like, okay, boomer. And this is a picture of, I don't actually know what university this is, but this is the New York Police Department, I'm pretty sure. People have, been noticing, again, I keep saying the militarized presence. I don't just mean riot shields. They are using, like, gear that be used for, like, hostage situations and shit like that. Like, they're pulling out all the stops. It is ridiculous. A funny comic writer literally posted this. Like, when people will talk about, like, oh, like nothing's free from politics now. Oh, everything's woke. If the world's on fire, how are you gonna not talk about it? Like, I don't understand. And this is just some of the more clean stuff I can show you. I can show you pictures of people who gotten hit by like rubber bullets and shit. But I know you can look that up on your own. I believe in you. Okay. So now here's some coverage of people who did violence against protesters. I think mostly cops, but might also cover anti-protesters.
Last night, violence ratcheted up, really on both coasts. These protests against the U.S. supporting Israel's onslaught in Gaza. At Columbia University, the students took over a building. Do we have footage of the cops entering into this building via a big ladder?
I don't know if the ramps in this footage.
I don't know if we have the ramps in this footage, but they infiltrated this like I mean, as if it was some
there's
type
a
of
mass shooting.
hostage
Yeah.
situation. I mean, look, the tradition of students taking over campus buildings is
Including that one.
including that one in particular, is at least 65 years old. It happened multiple times when I was in college, and I went to like not a particularly radical college at all. And so the overreaction here is pretty stunning. But let's just watch this briefly, and then we'll show what took place in I guess it was in UCLA, right? But
Also, just a note on this, people like Tom Cotton or whatever were talking about outside agitators. Also, David Axelrod implied that it'll be interesting to see how many of these people aren't students within there, and they've apparently released the list, and it's all students. So just a
Ha! Fucking ha! It was like, oh, outside agitators, and it's all people being like, Mom, they fucking put me in jail. What the fuck? For real.
of course it's
And yeah, Dell, you should post it in you should post the stuff you've been working on in the Discord.
all students. I mean, I imagine there are people like, that have stopped by.
Friends, yeah.
But the idea that outside agitators are going to get much out of on college campus is absurd. It's just an absurd, and it's a classic, timeless tactic to claim okay, it's members of the community. Who are these outside agitators? It's the whole country is providing taxes. Are they saying they're from a different country or aliens, or it's just this is as if these students are exclusively talking about their colleges. It is about, obviously they want their colleges to divest, but it's also about saying this is the venue in which we protest. Go ahead.
What the actual fuck?
There you go. You can see they're bringing. I mean, look at that. Look at that equipment that they are bringing. The police
Yeah, it was New
department
York.
has its own sort of dedicated ramp and ladder situation. That, first off, I can't even believe our taxpayers are paying for this.
crazy.
But the idea that they are deploying this amount of resources to get people out of a protest, and there they go, going up with shields, as if they're going into some type of hostage situation or armed revolt. These are just students who are camping out in this building. It's really, it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. And then let's go to UCLA. There was a peaceful encampment. Students, they had put up, sort of like the police medical barricades, and then they had to put up plywood there because pro-Israel protesters came and started throwing stuff at the people in these encampments, many of whom were Jewish students who were in this encampment basically saying, no genocide in my name, watching this. Go ahead.
You're gonna block Jewish kids? Yeah. You fighting back, bitch! You're terrorists if you're talking out, basic!
Now, I just want to make it clear. Pause it. When you talk about outside agitators, now keep the images up there. Go back, turn it to where it was. right? Yeah. Yeah, well, you get a sense of like, A, you've got these hooded guys. They don't look like college students to me.
Whole
These
ass
counter-protesters.
balaclava.
Where is the outcry of these counter-protests? Like, what outside element are these people?
Look at them wearing masks. Remember what Michael Tracy
Wearing
said?
masks and coming with hockey sticks, and they are instigating the violence. The police are doing nothing. They are clearly outside agitators. These are not college students there. And yet we'll hear nothing about it.
Okay, so here's some more stuff about what's happening at UCLA. I wouldn't be surprised if this is not the only place that this has happened. UCLA students describe violent attack on Gaza protest encampment. It was terrifying. Slow response from the authorities left students shocked as people wearing white masks attacked pro-Palestinian protesters. When Megan Nair, a second-year student at the University of California, Los Angeles, saw a mass group of people heading towards the pro-Palestinian encampment on campus late on Tuesday evening, she expected trouble. I knew where they were going. I had an idea what they planned to do. I didn't know what to do. But the violence that unfolded on the public university's campus overnight and the slow response from authorities shocked Nair and other UCLA students. Late on Tuesday night, a mass group surrounded the encampment in solidarity with Gaza, throwing fireworks and violently attacking students. Students and reporters from multiple outlets said university-hired security forces locked themselves in nearby buildings, and police looked on for hours before intervening. Wow. UCLA canceled all classes on Wednesday, with the exception of the central meeting area. The normally lively campus was mostly deserted. A helicopter hovered overhead throughout the morning while groups of security guards and law enforcement stood around the sectioned off encampment. Students slowed as they passed the barricades, taking in the scene. Noah, a law student who preferred to use only his first name, said he was horrified by the violence, which he described as akin to a battle. This was like a sacred ground to me, he said, pointing to the large lawn and stately brick buildings. It reminded me of January 6th. It was terrifying. I do hate the comparison to January 6th. That is something I've heard other people say. And it's like, oh, it's an uprising. It's not people storming a government building, trying to kill leaders of the government. UCLA, like other universities across the country, has been continuing protests over the war in Gaza. Nair said that the demonstrators at UCLA were largely peaceful when she attended last week, shortly after the encampment was established. It was beautiful. It was really amazing to see so many young people come together like that all on their own, Nair said. The amount of people and passion they had was just overflowing. But tension had been rising on campus, students said. Jewish students had reported feeling unsafe and described some of the behavior of demonstrators as anti-Semitic. It's been absolute chaos and complete division, said Logan Sear, a UCLA law student. It's so deeply politicized and so divided. He said he faced anti-Semitism on campus in the recent days and that people are frustrated the university allowed protests to continue as they have. Over the weekend, thousands of pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli demonstrators poured onto the campus, and several groups clashed on Sunday. Videos show people shouting and shoving each other. Some demonstrators attempted to breach a barrier between groups of protesters. Daniel Harris, a fourth-year student, said he stopped to observe the demonstrators on Tuesday evening after the university chancellor said the encampment was unlawful and could see tensions rising anew. Counter-protesters used speakers to play recordings of a crying child at a loud volume. Oh, fun. A masked man attempted to hop the fence surrounding the encampment but was forced out by security. Shortly after, Harris witnessed a large group of people wearing black with white masks that he said looked like something from the Purge marching towards the encampment. That does look like a Purge mask, not gonna lie. I was on the phone with my girlfriend and I was like, what the fuck is happening right now? What the actual fuck? I've never seen this in real life. This stuff only happens in movies. After he left, he watched footage of some of the same demonstrators breaching the barricade and beating protesters in the encampment, Harris said. A video of the scene showed people grappling, throwing chairs, and using sticks to beat one another. The violence unfolded for hours without intervention from police or security guards, media outlets reported. They just let it happen. It was up to the students to protect themselves, Nair said. The Los Angeles Police Department referred questions about the attack to UCLA's campus police, which a spokesperson said was the lead agency in the incident. The campus police have not yet offered comment. UCLA's chancellor said the university is gathering information about the attack, and its investigation may lead to arrests, expulsions, and dismissals. Nair said she was sickened by the attacks on students who she viewed as courageous for standing up for what they believe in and advocating for Palestinians. They didn't start this. This is a peaceful protest, she said. What I saw last night, those people, as far as I know, were just random people coming in on our campus, full-grown adults, and they started attacking kids. Sears said he believed the group that came on campus was unaffiliated with the people behind pro-Israel demonstrations and came to antagonize and take advantage of the chaos. There's so much frustration in the community that the school is allowing the encampment to happen, he said, but I can never stand behind that sort of violence. No, the UCLA law student said he wasn't happy with UCLA's approach to the encampment and that he expected to see even more division after this week's violence. The campus community is really fractured, and this is only going to increase it now, he said. Okay, and that's the end of the article. So yeah, there is violence happening on campuses, just to the students, not by the students. So we've gone through that. The YouTube description should have the links for everything I've showed thus far. Including this essay, which I'm not going to play in full. But the video essayist actually put in something in while editing about her experience with the encampments, because she's a college student and her local school had one and she went to visit it. So I wanted to put that on as well. Tay's intellectual is most likely to be a closeted literature professor with a secure income and no interest in dealing with the world outside the classroom. Edward Said, representatives of the intellectual, 1996. I do recommend watching this video, actually, if you have a chance, because it is interesting in talking about why this is such a battleground on college campuses, why that they're this particular tension point, but also how, or I should say, why there's such strong liberal desire to just be passive by a lot of especially faculty or academics, or at the very least people just being oh, I agree with what they're protesting about, but they're doing it in the wrong way, sort of shit. And why those sentiments are so common in academia. So it is a good essay.
Hey guys, editing Mika, coming to you live from my dorm. Just to give a little update, I have currently been at my college's pro-Palestine encampment to try and pressure our university to divest in Israel's apartheid regime and genocide in Gaza. And this next segment, I'm basically going to be talking about academia's lack of engagement with the real world. And obviously that's still an issue, right? But these past few days, as we've seen at Columbia, NYU, Emory, and CCNY, academics have been really coming out of their bubble, and I just wanted to commemorate that. They have been putting their careers and lives on the lines for their students. There have been countless arrests of intellectuals, and it's honestly alarming because historically when academics start getting targeted, the state slowly devolves into fascism, and I'm sure you guys are all keeping up with the news right now. I just wanted to thank all the faculty at the universities that have been coming out in support of their students in these encampments, putting their careers, putting their lives on the lines. This part of the video, this is not about you guys. This is just about like historical precedent.
So yeah, I like that that's being recognized, that there are academics, there are teachers that are stepping up and standing behind their students and not just infantilizing them and being like, oh, you just have your head in the clouds or something like that, you know? Um, I think that that's really, really beautiful. Now for something a little bit more depressing. When there's no more tabs, I will have no more stuff for the segment, and then we'll move on to games. But we still have a ways to go. So this is a list of brands supporting Israel that Muslims are boycotting. I believe that it can be hard when a lot of companies are doing fucked up shit and it's the status quo. And just like how it is commonly said that there is no ethical consumption under capitalism, it is, I think it is understandable that some people do want to try to divest. And in being like, oh, it's just too much, or having the idea that like it's too surmountable a thing to be able to change, is what helps power. If there wouldn't be encampments all around the United States right now and other places in the world, if not for people being like, we can do something, I want to do something, and not just being like, oh, the big bad is too big. And like, it is a big commitment. It is putting your body on the line to be there. People are getting hurt. People are being attacked. It is scary. I definitely don't. I definitely would not spite people who are afraid for their own safety and they're not participating in like radical action for that. And I think that it comes up a lot, especially in like leftist online spaces, especially stuff like us, where we're talking about this stuff, we're trying to get people to be aware, and just like I'm imagining anyone watching right now, you're not putting your neck out. We're not putting our neck out, at least not physically. Um, as far as I know, the worst thing happening with us is that we get put on a watch list by the government, which we're probably already on. And I mean, Twitch is owned by Amazon. Maybe Twitch will get mad at me, but we know other streamers who have talked about Israel Palestine stuff, and they still have their platforms. So I hope that nothing will happen to ours. Knock on wood. But it can be easy to be disillusioned. There are people who think they do a lot more than they actually do, but all they do is like harass people online or something, right? People are like, oh yeah, these keyboard warriors. But I think like it's important to hold space for others emotionally, if you can, because there's people affected by this, like directly affected by this, that might be people you know. We aren't connected to our bio family anymore, but like we do have Muslims that we are related to, and we are worried about them, for example, because Islamophobia is up. um it's scary, and even just being like, oh, I'm gonna stop using these companies, it can be really hard. After reading this list, there were a few companies that we saw that was like, oh, not only do I recognize that I engage with this company, but I think that I'd be able to separate myself from them. Not something that's like, oh no, I can't. Like Amazon. Amazon is pretty much the worst on everything, but they also have their hooks and everything. So it's really hard to divest personally from Amazon, especially if you need something or need something quick. But other stuff, not so much. Like Stream Elements is on this. Stream Elements, like the company that runs the bots, some of the bots that are used for moderation and other stuff on like different VTubers or streamers channels, including our own. So after this stream, or at least before our next stream, we're gonna try to like get rid of all our stream element shit and just have Streamlabs stuff, which isn't completely away from it because Streamlabs is like a subsidiary of Twitch, I believe, which also means that's connected to Amazon. So if you follow the trail up far enough, you will still find that. I know people were, I know at least one person who has like trying to set up an OBS setup where they don't have to go through these like middlemen companies that help things out, and it just makes things easier to be able to use these. I want to reiterate, if like you see like Welch's on here, and this is like the juice that you grew up with, or the only thing that helps your tummy ache or something, I'm not going to slam you. I don't think you're a bad person. That said, you're gonna recognize a lot on this list. I'm gonna be honest. Maybe I'm just ignorant, but what online left to talk about being on a government watch list for, or being limited when it comes to travel? It feels a little LARPy. Well, activists have literally been targeted in the past. The stream isn't about that, so I don't want to put too much of my spoons into looking up anything right now, specifically. But if you talk about certain things, you do generally end up on watch lists. Now, when I say watch list, I don't mean like those jokes that people say about like, oh, my personal FBI agent. You don't have your personal FBI agent. People who look up certain things can be automatically categorized by algorithms and stuff. And when there are reasons for the government to look into people having done certain things or having searched certain terms or being involved in certain actions, then it can populate and they might look for it. But the average person is never going to like see any repercussions for is not going to be punished for them promoting like leftism online or whatever. Like the average person, that's not the thing. But like when you make it consistent that you talk about this sort of stuff, then it can like lead to being algorithmically on those lists. Like Edward Snowden did blow the whistle on the like surveillance state that we all exist in. And it's hard to not be surveilled, though like most of us are not being surveilled by an actual human, like by an actual person in real time. That definitely is a fiction. I will say that. In terms of being limited on travel, I won't say like someone like ContraPoints or Philosophy Tube are getting like, stopped at airports or something by the TSA or something. Like you have to be doing a little bit more than that. Like the girl who's like big into environmentalism and now like communism, who like the right like hates. I forgot what her name is. But she's like a high priority activist. She's definitely been harassed by like state officials and stuff. I would hope that I wouldn't be, but I mean, I also literally had a parent who like lost their job and a lot of their like capital. I guess you could put it into a very capitalistic way, because of doing some like leftist shit that I wouldn't even have considered radical, really. At least considering what I know of that parent later on, like knowing them throughout our life or whatever. But like, you don't have to do much to get the government's attention. Personally, at least that's what I think. Streamlabs is also prone to literally stealing stuff. BDS list is typically the most essential and important, since it's targeted and communal, instead of the individual. Still, if you want to do others, do others. Greta Thunberg. Yes, thank you. Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg definitely has problems when giving someone her fucking passport. Excuse me. Between Twitch and YouTube, we would much rather use Twitch. Needing to tie YouTube interactions to a Google account sucks. Yeah, yeah, that is true. Not a big fan of that. YouTube is a lot stickier. Okay, so let's look at this complete list as of April 16th, 2024. Global wait. Global discussions on boycotting Israeli products and supporting brands increase amid the crisis in Palestine, with Muslims being urged even more by Islamic scholars to avoid Israeli brands. Keeping this view in connection and significance of Majid al-Askiq located in Palestine with Islamic history. The call to boycott Israeli products or the companies that support Israel have become a topic of global discussion. With thousands of Palestinians being killed by explosions every day by Israeli forces, it's time for everyone to boycott brands that support Israel and condemn their cruel act. Many of the brands are common ones, and every Muslim might have used them at least once. However, keeping in the view of the condition of Muslim brothers and sisters and the attacks of Masjid al-Aqsa, one of the holiest places in Islam, it is compulsory for each Muslim to boycott not only Israel products, but also brands that support Israel. It's compulsory? What? Huh? I feel weird about reading that, but I'm gonna continue. 5-star chocolate, 7 days, 7 Up, Apple, Airbnb, Arsenal FC, Aldo, Arcit, Axe, Accentry, Ariel, Adidas, ASDA, Action IQ, Aquafina, Amica, AccuWeather, Activia, Adobe, Alienware, Amazon Kindle, Aesop, Azerly Group, American Eagle, Amway Corp, Amazon, Ahava, Axel Springer, American Airlines, American Express, Alasan, ATSA, ADES, Aquarius, Ayataka, Audi, Brax, Bain & Company, Bank of America, Bear, Bank Lemmy, Bonja, Bon Buddy, Bank Hamplim, BCG Boston Consulting Group, Biotherm, Briska, Bloomberg, BMW, Boeing, Bose Allen Hamilton, Blueberry, Bath and Body Works, Bosch, Bristol Myers Squibb, Booking.com, Burger King, Barclays, Barbican, Capri Holdings, Costa, Carmel Adselco, Citizens Bank, Citra Paris, CareTrust REIT, Caterpillar, Converse, Coach, Cappy, Claude, CeraVe, Checkpoint Software Technologies, Ceralic, Canal, CyberArk, Chapman and Cutler, Channel, Cheerios, Cheetos. Fuck, Cheetos! Fuck. Sarah Lean, Chevron, Chips Ahoy, Christine Arugula, Citibank, Carrefour, Condrel, Costco, Canada Dry, Citi, Kalal Insurance Enterprises, Clean and Clear, Clear Blue, Clinique, Champion, Club Social, Coca-Cola, Coke, Coffee Mate, Colgate, Comcast, Compass, Caesars, Condé Nast. I didn't see Little Caesars yet though. Cooley LLP, Costco. Costco on there twice. Crest, CV Star. CyberArk Software, Cryonetics, Crayola, Crazy Art, CaseForge, Delmere, Delilah, Desert Diamond, Dr. Pepper, Del Valle, Deem, Dr. Pepper, Dasani, Decathlon, Doritos, Daz, Door, Dell, Deliot, Delta Airlines, Desk Bank, Desk Telecom, DHL Group, Dunthier, David Off, Disney, DLA Piper, Domestios, Domino's, Douglas Eliman, Downey, Dr. Fisher, Dr. Orr, Dawn Morris LLP, Dreft Baby Detergent and Laundry Products, Dare Grand Ice Cream, Deviant Arts. They also use AI, so fuck them like overwhelmingly. Dairy Milk, eBay, Elderman, Eli Lilly, Evian, Anthropine, Ericsson Endeavor, EPAM Systems, Estee Lauder, LB Systems, Expedia.com, EY, Elisi, Forbes, Facebook, Fairlife, Fancy Medjool, Food to Live, Fonterra, Forikio Rockter, Fanta, don't you, Anna? First International Bank of Israel, I mean, that's kind of obvious. Fiverr, Funyuns, Frito-Lay, Fuse, Fox News, interesting, Fox News, Fritos, Fox Corp, Foods Alive, Gatorade, Gamila Cell, GE, Glam Glow, General Catalyst, General Motors, Georgia, Gold Peak, they had good pretzels, Ginzy's, Goldman Sachs, Grandma's Cookies, Google, GADE Cosmetics, Grainier, Guest, Greenberg Therang, Galarian, Givenchy, Galaxo Smith Kine, H&M, Hadaclean, Huggies, Hanes, HSBC, Head and Shoulders, Hershey's, Herbert Smith, Free Mills, Hewlett Packard, Hasbro, Hulu, Hayudi, Henkel, Herald Insurance Investment and Financial Services, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, HubSpot, Huntsman Corp, HSNF, Harnsey State Care, Hotstar, HP, IBM, Innocent, Insight Partners, Indieds Group, IT Cosmetics, Instacart, Intel, Irish Spring, Intermedia, Interpublic Group, Instagram, ICL Group, Intuit, Indigo Books, Jazzwares, Jefferies, Jordan Plains, Jordan River, John Lewis, JP Morgan Chase, Jaguar, Johnson & Johnson, JP Morgan, Jolly, Just Beauty, Kennelly Holdings, Kate Spade, Kinder Bueno, Calaria, Karsten Farms, King Solomon, Kirk's, Kinley Water, KKR, KFC, KKW Cosmetics, Kirkle, Keebler, damn, they got the L's too, Kalinos, Calflade, Cativa, I'm pretty sure that's like a sugar substitute, Knar, KPMG, Kaiko Milano, Krispy Kreme? Really, Krispy Kreme? How dare you? Lemonade, Liddy, Limca, Loblaws, Levi Strauss, Louis Vuitton, La Palma, Lifewater, Levi's, Levi Strauss, LinkedIn, Land Rover, L'Oreal, Lego, Lego! Leversima, Live Nation Entertainment, Lufthansa, La Rook Posse, Lipton, London Dairy Supply, Major League Baseball, Manpower Group, Marriott, Mars, Marsh McLean, Eminem, Mason Francis, Kirkjian, MasterCard, Mattel, Minute Maid, Monster, damn it, sorry gamers, Meriden, Mazra, Monkey, Morrison's, Maine's FC, Mellow Yellow, Mountain Dew, Moroccan Oil, Midgo Insurance, Marks and Spencer, Miranda, McDormand, Will and Emery, McDonald's, Motorola, McKinsley, Merrick, Michael Kors, Maziri, Tarfot Bank, Merrick, KAAG, I feel like I'm reading in tongues. Michael Kors, Milky Bar, Maybelline? Can't believe it's Maybelline. Mount Franklin, Meta, Me Undies, they have some cute undies, but they're evil. Mattel, Microsoft. Don't throw away your computers, everybody. Munchies, Miranda, Morgan Lewis, Marcarani, Morgan Stanley, MRC, Maylee, Marigitone, McVilchy, Mommy Care, My Heritage, McLean's, NASDAQ, Naughty Dog, Nivera, Next, NOS, Nabisco, Nutter Butter, No Frills, National Basketball Association, National Geographic, Nintendo, New Balance, Nutella, Nava Fresh, Newton's, Nvidia, Netflix, Nescafe, Nestle, Nesquik, Nike, Nussbeiser, Oreo, Overwolf, Oral-B, Old Spice, Osserio, Amphazon, Ocean Spray, Ampado, Ovalene, Procter & Gamble, Pampers, Purett's, Pull&Bear, Paradise Dates, Pepsi, Premium Medjool, Fitzker, Popeyes, Phillips, Paramount, Parker Pins, Philadelphia Cream Cheese, Pizza Hut. Powerade, Purina, Phoenix Holdings, Propel, Pond's, Pure Leaf Green Tea, Power Action Wipes, PWC, Prada, Perry Ellis, Prada Eyewear, Pringles, Pioneer, Palamotive, Procter & Gamble, Pure Life, Purnology, Puma, Prenaturals, Pimpkin, Pentland, Quaker Oats, Reddit, Roland, Royal Bank of Canada, Ruffles, Revlon, Ralph Lauren, Ritz, Rolls-Royce, Royal, Rapunzel, Red Sea, Royal Treasures, S. Pelengrio, I think that's an alcohol company, Sambra Hummus, Sombre, Sony, Sap, Simply, Smartwater, Sprite, Schwab, Shell, SodaStream, Siemens, Stream Elements, Schweipes, Sunsilk, Signal, Skittles. Signal? Really? Smart Foods, Saban, Sebo Claim, Skechers, Sobe, Squartson, Smarties, Sephora, Sam's Club, Shoppers Drug Market, Superbus, Samsung, SodaStream, Sunkiss, SoftBank, Sour Patch Kids, Starbucks, Sedif, Sansbury, Shames, Sincerely Nuts, Sneakers, at least they weren't Skechers, Stardates, Stride, Subway, Supreme Tea, Safi, Sunglass Hut, Surf Excel, Tang still exists, Takis, Taste of Bake Shop, The Body Shop, Teva, Tesco, Twitch, The Ordinary, Tim Hortons, Thumbs Up, Tesco's, Timberland, Topico Chico, Tapestry, Tropicana, Tommy Hilfiger Toiletries, Turbos, Tom Ford, Taco Bell, Triscuit, TUC, Twix, Tottenham Hotspurs, Twisties, Tratzif, TripAdvisor, Trema Barley, Uber Eats, Urban Decay, Urban Platter, Upfield, Unilever, Vicks, Victoria's Secret, V8, Vaseline, Vitamin Water, Volkswagen, Volvo, Vanguard, Walmart, Wegmans, WhatsApp, Waitrose, Woolworths, Wheat Thins, Walkers, Warner Brothers, Warner Chicket, Warner Music, Wells Fargo, Wild Harvest Organic Tahani, Wilson Strawn, Wix, Wing Street, Wakanzi Tea, WWE, Wheel Washing Powder? The Wrigley Company, WebHelp, Etsbots, YouTube, Yavel, Yum Brands, Vizyed, Zara, Zim Shipping, Ziff Davis, and Zal Nutrition. There were some repeats, but not that many. So, yeah, I would say it is functionally impossible to not in some way have your purchases support Israel. Literally, Sony Xbox and Microsoft were on it. So if you're a console gamer, oh no, like Monster, Gatorade, all these things are like, yo, fitness, Nike, like, oh, sorry. There are. I thought that I saw Costco twice. There's a thing called Costco. So Costa and Costco. Gotcha. Bath and Body Works. I must have. I must have blacked out for that one. Although I'm not like a big fan of Bath and Body Works, so it's not a super huge deal. American Eagle. That's not surprising at all. So yeah. I don't know how to check the legitimacy of this list. But a lot of these in no way surprise me, and some of these I have definitely heard before, especially stuff like Twitch. Though boycotting the brands that are in daily use can be a tough decision, it is a necessity with regard to the situation. As been stated by the Holy Prophet, if anyone sees anything wrong, one must try to stop it by hand, if not by tongue. And even if that's not possible, one must think about that thing as evil in their heart. Ah, I see. Not they're not saying political like that a government will make you boycott these brands. They're saying that scripture says you should boycott these brands. I hope you don't need to Google search anything. So we're almost done, but we have just a little bit left to go. Casca too? I can't believe it. At least Guts isn't on the list. I can't believe Casca would do something like that. Fucking Christ. There are effective ways to actively hurt Nintendo that you can do from home if you're in the EU. Oh, there's plenty of ways to hurt Nintendo. Is Amazon on top? Well, yeah, YouTube is on it. I don't know if YouTube literally was on it, but Google is on it, and Google owns YouTube, so YouTube is effectively on it. Don't worry, half of them are probably under Unilever or Procter and Gamble law. Oh yeah, a lot of companies are just literally subsidiaries or shell companies for even bigger companies. So really, the amount of companies that actually control the world, or I should say control the world, that have a lot of influence on the world and on global politics and global climate change, are basically owned by like a handful of super companies. And increasing the scope of this entire thing, context is important because there are a lot of historical protests, even just in America, on college campuses. This is not new. This is a list of protests during the Vietnam War. I'm not gonna read all of these occurrences, but I just want to show you the amount that has happened. Oh! A conference at Yale plans demonstrations on May 4th. Ah. If only we were streaming tomorrow, we could do a May 4th stream as well. Happy May Day. If you don't know, whatchamacallit, the Vietnam War was the most unpopular war in American history, one might say. And is one of the wars that America lost. They pulled out. It was just really, really bad. It was bad for the soldiers. They didn't want to fight, and they were constantly dying. It obviously wasn't good for the people who lived in Vietnam. It wasn't good for like American economy and like the working class. Like it wasn't really good for anyone, other than the powers that be. But like. It is a historical war that was pushed back against. That is another thing that is like glorified in hindsight, but as we can see with current day politics, was just as divisive as the current anti-genocide protests are right now. The scientific name is war pigs. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Reminder that boycotts are a waste of political energy. I don't think so. I disagree. I don't think that all boycotts are equal. I don't think that we should put the same energy into every single thing. I think that certain strategical actions can definitely have a huge effect. And I also believe in diversity of tactics. I think that it's not far enough, obviously. But I think that under certain conditions, it can be done. Remember, the civil rights movement, a lot of that during in America, like the Black Civil Rights Movement, there was a lot of bus boycotts. There was a lot of like sit-ins, but not, buying food at like, eateries and stuff. Like hurting businesses can be effective, but you can't stop there. That's all I have to say about that. Repeating, this is a good example of why targeted boycotts like the BDS list are preferable. Keeping this entire list is nearly impossible, but picking a handful that most strongly support the crimes of Israel and are easy to convince people to boycott is a lot easier and genuinely more effective. So do whatever makes you feel best. Oh yes, of course. And I want to repeat, just because I read off that list does not mean that I intend to, or that I am telling anyone here to boycott everything on this list, because this is literally impossible. There's some companies that, it feels like you can. That's great. I mean, I'm going to change my bank for sure. I'm still streaming on YouTube and Twitch, obviously. I probably will still eat Doritos, for example. But finding out the small ways that you can help can be really useful. Including, giving money to bail funds, or if you don't have money to spare, I'm not an expert on this, but I am sure that there are ways to help. As we might see in a little bit. But I'm going to read this article about U.S.'s long history of college protests. And then I'm going to show you what some of the students who were actually doing this political action have said, since I have went this entire stream without really letting them speak for themselves. April 28, 2024. Pro-Palestinian demonstrators have taken over parts of college campuses across the U.S., the latest in a decades-long string of protests ignited by political activism, some of which are spiraled into violence amid police crackdowns. In the past, free speech sit-ins quickly escalated into massive rallies. Vietnam War college demonstrations turned deadly, and U.S. civil rights protests ended in mass arrests. The circumstances of each protest were different, but the story is similar. Young people demanded changes on their campuses or in the world, and their impassioned demonstrations often escalated amidst clashes with authorities. Columbia, the university at the center of the current wave of protests, has even seen similar protests before, including during the Vietnam War in 1968. Demonstrations led the university to end classified war research and stop military recruitment, among other changes, wrote Rosalind Rosenberg, a professor of history at Barnard College, for Barnard Magazine. Today's demonstrators also have specific changes in mind, often involving divestment from Israel, citing the deaths of more than 34,000 Palestinian people who died in Gaza amid Israel's bombardment and ground assault. The military campaign was triggered by Hamas's incursion into southern Israel on October 7th, when about 1,200 people, mostly civilians, were killed and more than 240 people were taken hostage. But as campus authorities react swiftly, citing safety concerns and calling in police to break up encampments, it's unclear if or how the current protests will influence the Israel-Hamas war. USA Today revisited 4 monumental campus protests to explain how college protests have become a staple of American life and often influence the outcomes of political strife. Here's a look at how previous campus protests unfolded and whether they were successful in their causes. University of California, Berkeley, free speech in 1960s. At the University of California, Berkeley, starting in 1964, students protested the university's limits on political activities and free speech during the civil rights movement and Vietnam War era. In the wake of McCarthyism's anti-communist sentiments during the 1950s, public universities in California had enacted numerous regulations limiting students' political activities, wrote Karen Eigler for the Free Speech Center at the Middle Tennessee University. At the University of California, Berkeley, student groups taking part in any on or off-campus political activities were banned from campus. What transpired were sit-ins and demonstrations that escalated into a series of large-scale rallies and protests demanding full constitutional rights on campus, reads UC Berkeley website. Nearly 800 students were arrested by local police as a result. The students' protests ultimately worked in their favor. The university eventually overturned policies that would restrict the content of speech or advocacy, according to the college. Today, the movement stands as Today, the movement stands as a symbol of the importance of protecting and preserving free speech and academic freedom, reads the UC Berkeley website. Kent State University in Ohio, Vietnam War 1970. The most prolific university protests of the Vietnam War happened in Kent State University in Ohio in May 1970. Students started protesting the Vietnam War and the U.S. invasion of Cambodia on their campus on May 2nd. 2 days later, the National Guard opened fire into a sea of anti-war protesters and passerbys. The soldiers killed 4 young people: Allison Cruz, Jeffrey Miller, Sandra Shover, and William Knox Schroeder. And no, those are 2 different names. I was like, whoa, they're siblings. And injured several others with their violence. The impact of the shootings was dramatic, wrote Jerry Lewis and Thomas Hansley in an article for Kent State University. The event triggered a nationwide student strike that forced hundreds of colleges and universities to close. Ohio National Guardsmen head back towards Taylor Hall in the Patagonia after stopping on a practice field near Perriton's Hall parking lot on May 4th, 1970 in Kent State, Ohio. Ah, wow. Tomorrow's the anniversary of that. The shootings also influenced national policies. Lewis and Hansley wrote, in The Ends of Power, H.R. Helderman, a top aide to President Richard Nixon, states that the shootings at Kent State began the slide into Watergate, eventually destroying the Nixon administration. The article reads, today, the protests and shootings certainly come to symbolize the deep political and social divisions that so sharply divided the country during the Vietnam War era, Lewis and Hansley wrote. Jackson State College in Mississippi, racial injustice in 1970. Days after the shooting at Kent State, police officers opened gunfire at a college dormitory, Jackson State College in Mississippi, a school with a predominantly black student population. Black students there were protesting racial injustice, including how they were treated by white drivers speeding on campus, according to the university. Police received a call that young black people were throwing rocks at white drivers near the campus. Does that sound familiar? Oh, the people that are actually being hurt and oppressed. No, those are the people that are hurting. Oh no, the students are going to violence. Police arrived at the scene and shot hundreds of bullets into Alexander Hall. Fucking Christ. Hundreds of bullets into Alexander Hall, according to the FBI report. Police killed 2 students, Philip Lafayette Gibbs and James Earl Green, and injured 12 others. The college also canceled its graduation due to the killings and unrest. Makes sense? Bullet holes rolled the windows of a women's dormitory at Jackson State College in Mississippi on May 15, 1970. Police fired into the dormitory, killing 2 and wounding 15. On the historically black college campus. After state workers attempted to repair Alexander Hall and remove evidence of the shooting, Millsaps college students joined Jackson State students in blocking the entrance to the dorm on May 20th, 1970 in Jackson, Mississippi, Jackson State University. Wow. Everything except the online stuff. I think maybe I didn't hear the entire list. You probably didn't hear the entire list, Dale. It was long as fuck. It was like 200 something thingies. Not the actions of a government that loves their people. I don't know if there is a government that loves their people. Maybe Cuba? Can't but always notice how the news focus on the damage to buildings and not bodies. For real! The stuff today they're talking about, vandalism and broken windows and stuff. And not, people being shot with rubber bullets, getting concussions, that sort of thing. Because, capital is what matters, not people. At a 2021 commencement ceremony, the university honored 74 of the students who were unable to walk the stage in 1970. Whoa. NBC reported. At the commencement ceremony, Jackson Mayor Choki Antar Lumlamba said police unjustly gunned down two innocent young black men, terrorized and traumatized the community of black students, and committed one of the gravest sins in our city's history. The killings at Jackson State College and Kent State University National sparked outrage. College students across the nation protested on their campuses, according to the Zen Education Project, a collaboration of historical content from the groups Rethinking Schools and Teachings for Change. The spring of 1970 saw the first general student strike in the history of the United States. Whoa. Does that give you any ideas? Students from over 400 colleges, and universities calling off classes to protest the invasion of Cambodia, the Kent State affair, the killing of two black students at Jackson State College in Mississippi, and the continuation of the war, wrote Howard Zinn in the book, You Can't Be Neutral on a Moving Train. Gosh, I want to read that. I believe Howard Zinn also wrote, Anti-Intellectualism in American Life, which I remember having to read for AP English or AP US History in high school. Angus Johnson, an adjunct assistant professor at Hostos Community College of the University of New York and a historian of student activism, said after both events, there was a period of about 30 years or so where it tended to be fairly unlikely that campuses would respond with mass arrests, even in the case of admin building occupations. Nationwide South Africa anti-apartheid protests in 1985. Another form of popular college campus protests occurred in the 1980s. Students across the country wanted their colleges to cut ties with groups that supported from the South African apartheid. So it sounds like the current situation at college campuses and present day is really just them looking at history and going, yeah, we should probably do this too. Like, literally. Under apartheid, race restricted every aspect of life for South Africans who were black, Indian, and colored, a multiracial classification created by the government, the New York Times reported. There were strict limits to where they could live, attend school, work, and travel. Columbia Anthropologists Against Apartheid. Divest now. Columbia University was at the center of the movement. Students led by the Coalition for a Free South Africa at Columbia University blockaded Hamilton Hall, the university's administrative buildings, leading to the first successful divestiture campaign at the university. Reads a summary of the events from Zen Education Project. There was less pushback for protesters during the time, due to a certain embarrassment among elites in the United States that there was complicity with South Africa's white government, said Daniel Farber, a history professor at the University of Kansas who studied American activism. Columbia University was one of the first colleges to divest from doing... Wait! You serious? Columbia University was... Columbia University was one of the first colleges to divest from doing business with South Africa, and 155 universities followed suit. So of course the fucking the Columbia is at the center of this current thing. Oh wow. History is a spiral. Hey Nova, I hope you've been safe on your college campus. Columbia University was one of the first colleges to divest from doing business with South Africa. The U.S. Congress also passed the Comprehensive Anti-Apartheid Act in 1986, which aimed to prevent new trade and investment between the nation and South Africa. What is the future of college protests in America? Free speech experts told USA Today that students should continue to peacefully protest and opening campus spaces to avoid conflict. Oh, so they're telling them not to take over buildings. Alex Morley, the director of campus rights advocacy for the Foundation of Individual Rights and Expression, encourages universities to remain neutral in times of unrest and not to call in authorities unless the demonstration turns violent. The national nonprofit defends American rights to free speech and thought. Yeah, just stay neutral. Don't do what's right. God. Now I'm understanding or re-understanding that quote about the hottest places in hell are for people who like sit the fence and shit. Peaceful protest is a hallmark of a healthy speech climate on American college campuses. It has been for decades. Whether it's the Berkeley free speech movement or students protesting the Vietnam era of civil rights, Morley said. Generations of students felt passionately about certain issues, and the open air spaces on campus are great places to support their views. I can't believe that this article goes over the history, over a snapshot blueprint of what it could take to change things, and using college campuses as a space for that engagement. And they literally at the end said, be nice little protesters and don't disrupt anything. Fucking Christ. I mean, they're called USA Today. I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was just like, damn, this article's going hard. And then it got to present day and it was just like, we'll just say what the people who are remaining neutral will say. God, I fucking hate that shit. There was a time for peace, and then there was a time when that man was riddled with bullets. I'm not letting that happen to me. For real. There was a protest on our campus. Also tear gas at Emory. Fucking Christ. I hope people are... I hope no one dies. Fucking Christ. I mean, all the world's a stage. No, yes, the past sucked, the present sucks, and the future sucks. But together, we can all make it suck less. So don't lose hope. I feel we need to revisit the discourse around the George Floyd protests and how political movements are neutered by being restricted to peaceful protests. Oh, that's definitely what's being talked about, especially in the national conversation being shown visibly by like major media sources have not been too critical in the directions that I would want. But in general, a lot of people are repeatedly being like, "Yo, like." These protests are doing something, and we're not the ones being violent. Though I guess that is subtly different than being like, there is a time to stop peaceful protests and do a thing that I cannot legally tell you to do. A liberal is someone who stands against every war except the current war, and who stands for all civil rights except those being fought for at this moment. Yes, that is. I don't know whose quote that is, Snack, but yes. Reminder that the USA uses tear gas on its civilians, while it's considered a war crime by the Geneva Convention if used in combat. Fun facts. Here's what universities always get wrong about student protests. Repression draws attention to campus protests, like those over the conflict in Gaza, and makes them grow. By Bernard King. Yesterday. As protests of the Gaza war have erupted on university campuses over the last few weeks, we see once again the idealism, dedication, and energy that young people bring to the causes they care about. Although there is nothing new about student activism, every time it appears on campuses within a fresh generation, it brings an exhilarating vibrancy. In the 1950s, students protested against the rising tide of McCarthyism and its threat to free expression. In the 1960s, students brought civil rights, the women's movement, and the anti-Vietnam War movement to the campuses. The 1980s witnessed a wave of anti-apartheid protests, including the spread of shantytowns as a tactic. And in the 1990s, students protested their universities' affiliations with clothing retailers like Nike that employed sweatshop labor in their supply chains. More recently, campuses have been awash with activism related to fighting climate change and supporting Black Lives Matter. It makes sense that campuses seethe with protest. Universities and colleges give students a liberal education focused on critical thinking, broadening their perspective, and emphasizing the importance of ideas in their lives. And as research on activism has demonstrated, young people simply have more time, energy, and flexibility to dedicate to activism, especially when compared to their slightly older, full-time employed peers. Campuses are designed for the discussion of ideas and include places like open plazas where students can gather for extracurricular activities and for protests. Campuses are laboratories for innovative thinking and experimentation with new perspectives. They ostensibly promote free expression. Naturally, students are often on the cutting edge of social movements. And yet every generation of administrators fumbles in dealing with student activities, despite history abounding with what past administrations did to quell the impact of activism on campuses and the consequences, positive and negative. Every time there is a new wave of activism, it's as if administrators are facing protests for the first time. Student protesters, in contrast, seem to be more organized, more savvy, and better prepared for what administrators throw at them with each successive generation. It's almost like the movement builds upon itself. There are good reasons why. Despite each new student cohort being quite young and inexperienced, networks of activists exist and link ideologically aligned students across campuses. Activists have refined campus protest tactics over time, learning from what worked in the past and creating plans that can easily be transported across time and location. It's not coincidental that the tent cities of the anti-apartheid movement in the 1980s look similar in form and function to the encampments springing up recently. Activism from the past gets stored in a collective memory, often through written records and routinized in social movement organizations and passed to the next generation. Which is exactly why there's a lot of effort to limit education and make education, especially in America, more conservative so that, young people don't get so many newfangled ideas. Of course, student activists can turn to their faculty, who were once young protesters themselves, I hope, and who are willing to mentor and support student activism as it takes shape. Not surprisingly, in the recent protests, a handful of faculty can usually be seen at the side of their students, sometimes forming protective shields when police threaten to intervene and try to remove the encampments. Those faculty didn't just show up randomly. They are proof of the deep level of organizing and coordination that goes into carrying out these campus campaigns. And this is what the administrators often get wrong about student protests. They incorrectly assume that student protests are passionate but disorganized, and that the protests erupt like mobs reacting to events going on around them. With this mindset, it's easy to underestimate the students' preparedness, their resolve, and ability to respond to administrative attempts to break up protests. Administrators are often overconfident in their ability to enforce rules about what counts as legitimate protests and fail to see how attempts to police protests only further mobilize students. They also fail to comprehend how willing police are to instigate violence, leading to injuries. This miscalculated attempt to repress protests usually adds fuel to the fire, partially because it enrages students who weren't previously involved in the protests and who see policing as an injustice and violation of their understanding of what kinds of free expression are permitted and even encouraged. Repression may escalate otherwise nonviolent protests into violent interactions, usually at the hands of the very police supposedly sent in to maintain peace. But the other reason it further escalates protests is because it brings more attention to them. Attention is activist fuel. The more attention the protest gets, the easier it is to get other people to participate and greater pressure they can exert on their targets, the very administration that is trying to stop them. As social movement scholars like myself have found in numerous studies, attention is a resource that gives activists their leverage in getting what they want. Generation after generation, student protesters use attention as a means to mobilize others to their cause and pressure administrators to engage their causes. And yet, generation after generation, administrators seem to forget this and resort to the same repressive responses. Although clearly not every administration has responded the same way. We can see the same pattern emerging in the current wave of anti-war protests. Columbia, Emory, the University of Texas, and the University of Connecticut are just a handful of campuses where administrators have responded with force and arrests. In none of these cases did repression end the protests. Instead, repression led to widespread disapproval of the administration among faculty and students on the sidelines. Students have since showed up in greater numbers. In Austin at the University of Texas, students marched back into campus just hours after being removed by police. Repression isn't working. This pattern of protest and administrative repression isn't new. One is only to look back on campus reactions to student protests in the 1960s to see how harsh policing of protests contributed to the removal of chancellors and university presidents who seemed incapable of quelling unrest, which we have literally seen in the past weeks. Now as then, members of the faculty revolt and issue no confidence votes. Donors and trustees lose faith in the administration's ability to lead. Administrators often find themselves with few supporters on either sides of the protest. As a scholar of movements and a faculty member of one of the universities where anti-war protests have emerged, I get why administrators' first instinct is to respond through rule enforcement and punishment. They're facing a complex set of pressures themselves, and they may feel cornered by students who are unwilling to compromise. But the history of campus activism has taught us that repressive responses usually just add fuel to the fire and increase the leverage the student protesters have. Administrators who act with restraint and give protests time and space to engage and listen to others are more likely to find themselves in a place where productive dialogue can take place on campus. Given our ideals of a liberal education and free expression, productive dialogue seems like the outcome we should all strive for. I mean, I mostly agree with this article, but I feel this person is not radicalized enough. This is an opinion and analysis article, and the views expressed by the author or authors are not necessarily those of the Scientific American. Brian King is a sociologist and the Matt McGraw Chair of Management and Environment at Northwestern University's Kellogg School of Management. His research looks at the consequences of social movements and activism on policymaking, corporate decision-making, and cultural change. Very interesting. Okay. Now we get to hear what some Columbia students had to say. Fucking Christ. What I'm hearing is, we want you to be really passive in what you say and do. At the same time, keep yourself on campus. Don't cause an issue in a different area. And most importantly, do all this while you're young so that once you're older, we can trap you within a chop that you cannot escape, and a trap you cannot escape. Otherwise, the impending weight of all your expenses will kill you. Now you're thinking with portals. Wow, I'm glad someone learned something. I hope other people learn things today. Our faculty was standing on the sidelines. Oh, so they weren't helping students, Nova? That sucks. Do you feel safe on your campus, Nova? It's easy to ignore police violence if you always look the other way. This is true. People who are used to being safe don't really care. Oh yeah, center left is a thing. Yeah, I want academics to be more radicalized. What can I say? Columbia University apartheid divest. CUAD. Ooh, excuse me. Our coalition. We are currently a coalition of 116 different organizations. We represent thousands of Columbia students across 9 different schools. Below are the organizations that comprise us. If your organization would like to sign on to CUAD, please send an email to this address. So these are all the organizations that comprise the Columbia University Apartheid Divestments organization. I'm not gonna read all of them. I'm almost done with this part of stream, and I'm gonna take a 15-minute break when we're done with that. This is a newsletter from CUAD. Columbia honors its long and proud tradition of protest and activism by unleashing riot cops to brutalize students. Below are 2 May Day statements republished from student organizers. May Day statement from student organizers. Today is May Day, day 207th of Israel's genocide of the Palestinian people in Gaza. Yesterday, April 30th, was the 56th anniversary of the NYPD arresting nearly 700 protesters on this very campus in an attempt to shut down the glorious student movement of 1968. Tuesday night, students at CUNY and it says Cunny. It says Cunny. It says Cunny. Sorry. Ignore the Cunny. The Tuesday night, students at CUNY and Columbia Fighting for Divestment faced some of the worst police brutality witnessed on college campuses. These incidents mark a turning point in the student movement, and we hope this historic moment will be a time for reflection and redirection. We hope this movement will catalyze the world into seeing that students have the right to resist police brutality, just as Palestinians have the right to resist their genocidal oppressors. University campuses have become the most contested ground in the nation. As students display overwhelming support for divestment from Israel apartheid and genocide, the administration has subjected them to brutal police and state violence, and university students like Minok Safik have welcomed police, pigs, into our campus until graduation. To police brutality, we say we are not deterred, and we will win. Columbia will still divest. To repression, we say our numbers will only grow. To state violence, we say we will come back stronger, smarter, and better prepared to stand our ground. To the Palestinian people, we recommit our love for you and affirm that our hope and will has never been stronger. Our people arrested today will soon be free and ready to fight again with even greater insight into the oppressor's tools and weaknesses. We, the students, will win. From Emory to Humboldt to CUNY, we will wage not only a fight against the oppressors, but an effort to educate the world on our government's complicity in the genocide and the sham that is the American empire. From the belly of the beast, we proudly state that we are calm, we are unafraid, and we are strong. Tomorrow is ours. The victory is nearer than we imagine, and in our hearts are olive trees that will sprout passion unlike anything this country has ever seen. We, with our voices, our hearts, our minds, will build a student movement that will take back our campuses from morally corrupt administrators who disregard humanity for the sake of profit. We are the students. We are not afraid. We will win all of our demands and more. From Turtle Island to Palestine to Harlem, we will win. Nice. Statement from members of JAFRA, the Palestinian Students Committee. Harlem, New York. Yesterday, on April 30th, 2024, the administrators and boards of the New York universities further cemented their role as tools of empire. It is an attempt to stifle the student movement for Palestinian liberation. They unleashed the NYPD on student protesters demanding divestment and an end to genocide. Our refusal to succumb to their threats and empty promises has threatened the interests of genocidal entity and its Western imperial backers, exposing our university's complicity in war crimes, apartheid, and genocide. Our victory, then, must be understood as a seed for the struggle to come, one that heralds seismic shifts in the popular struggle for justice and liberation in Palestine. Precisely 56 years ago, On April 30th, 1968, nearly 700 anti-war student protesters at Columbia occupied Hamilton Hall. They were met with brutal forces of state and parastate violence for their bravery and strategic ingenuity. Today, we stand on that same ground, facing the same adversaries, but with a resolve fiercer than before. Acting autonomously, students and members of the Columbia community seized that same hall and renamed it after Hind Rajab, a 5-year-old Palestinian girl murdered by the occupation army in Gaza. Our encampment and ensuring occupation were born of an unwavering commitment to justice. The former's birth in April was the result of courageous students and their allies rising up to confront the entrenched complicity of our institution in the 7 months of genocide in Gaza and the more than a century of settler colonialization in Palestine. Our demands were righteous mandates to end Columbia's material and academic ties to the global imperial project in Palestine and to secure justice for victims of Zionist aggression. We exercise our rights to resist. I'm a sheep. Deep, 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 deep. Thank you for following. Your life will be filled with happiness and sadness, and a free Palestine. Escalation then was the order of the day. After the direct action, Colombia's president Namat Talat Mansku Shafiq deployed the NYPD to our campus. Hundreds of our comrades were unjustly incarcerated, their only crime being the defense of justice against the monstrous tyranny of Zionism's genocidal agenda. Students were thrown downstairs, their bodies beaten and their hijabs ripped off. Shafiq had then thanked the NYPD for their incredible professionalism and support. Despite our campus becoming a violent police state, students continue to organize for Gaza. We are completely undeterred. Rather than end the massacres in Gaza, the Western forces seek to crush the Palestinian movement in the United States. Their what is this? Revenge is the political manifestation of the will to reverse the territorial losses which are incurred by a country, frequently after a war or after a social movement. Has been both confused and savage, marshaling every tactic of counterinsurgency to prevent our mission from being achieved. In doing so, they have deepened their own contradictions. Columbia's veneer of enlightenment, morality, and academic inquiry has been shown to be paper thin. No more than a paean to the immiseration? Immiseration. Immiseration is the act of making miserable, especially impoverishing a group of people. Immiseration in capital. The university, local, state, and federal authorities all seem united in their efforts to crush, criminalize, and demobilize the ongoing protests while heeding none of their demands. They create a dangerous situation for themselves in the days just before summer. If the Zionist entity invades Rafah, which they insist they will do regardless of the toothless and shameful fraud that is the U.S.-led ceasefire talks, then sane people in our country will have to soberly acknowledge that the forces they oppose will rather place snipers on the rooftops of college campuses than stop the mass murder of innocents. If this is true, and it is true, then it is imperative for everyone to embrace the methods capable of compelling millions of people to rise up and to topple the Western imperial systems themselves. Those who enforce peace are working for those who make war. Allow this to be the first strike of many to come. Allow yourselves to seize the moment the students have ignited. Columbia honors its long and proud tradition of protest and activism by unleashing riot cops to brutalize students. On April 30th, 2024, Columbia University marked the 56th anniversary of the infamous 1968 crackdown on students protesting the Vietnam War and the gentrification of Harlem. Oh, the other stuff that we looked at didn't even mention that. A day remembered for over 700 student arrests and unprecedented police brutality on Columbia's campus. The raid, referred to as the Death of Columbia, mobilized the students to completely shut down the campus. Shafiq invoked the activism of the brave students of Columbia's history in an email sent out the following morning, the morning following Tuesday night's raid. She listed the student movement's focus on the Vietnam War, civil rights, and anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa, while affirming that our students today are also fighting for an important cause. How nice of Shafiq to acknowledge the importance of our cause. It's a shame that her actions reveal that Palestinian life and liberation are not quite as important to her as filling her pockets with the blood money of her genocidal investments. Furthermore, in the classic fashion of imperialist bootlickers, Safiq completely obfuscates the truth of what our comrades are fighting for. She decries the humanitarian tragedy in Gaza as if an unavoidable, sourceless disaster struck, as opposed to a deliberate ethnic cleansing campaign carried out by Israel. Safiq then moves from obfuscations to flagrant lies. She claims the administration has been patient and tolerant of unauthorized protests, specifically referencing the encampment. Let's remember that, according to Shafiq, suspending, evicting, and unleashing hundreds of cops on peaceful protesters one day after the encampment launched in a virtual display of patience and tolerance. Safiq's email claimed that the taking of Hens Hall was a drastic escalation that created a disruptive environment for everyone and raised safety risks to an intolerable level. Yet, the disgusting irony is that the real escalation of threats to safety were the hundreds of riot cops, including the belligerent Strategic Response Group, SRG, she called in to flood Columbia's main campus. Got on my work ride and smells like old folks' home and a pail mixed with popcorn. Damn. That's quite a that's quite a ride. Safiq reassures the Columbia community that her first responsibility is safety. We must ask ourselves, safety for whom? She can't possibly mean the safety of students who are being routinely harassed and doxxed, and even attacked with chemical weapons. Surely she cannot claim to care about the safety of students when she was so moved to thank the NYPD for their incredible professionalism and support. The morning after they brutally arrested over 100 students, brandished guns inside Hamilton Hall, and even flung one student down the steps outside. Perhaps the safety Shafiq refers to is that of the school's private property. After all, in her email, she denounced the breaking of Hamilton Hall doors, seemingly using property destructions as a means to justify summoning the NYPD in droves. This move came just 4 days after claiming that doing so would be counterproductive and inflammatory. However, she clearly does not care about the safety of the school's property. As Tuesday night, the cops she praised for their professionalism were filmed splintering open doors, busting windows, and forcibly smashing chairs and other furniture to the ground outside of Hamilton. We are left to deduce that the only safety Safiq speaks of is the protection of the imperialist interests and profits of the university's board of trustees at all costs. This safety leaves no regard for human lives, neither those of students protesting nor those 45,000 plus Palestinian lives. In her conclusion, Safiq expresses her desire to restore calm, which to her apparently means the continued militarization of campus through graduation. It's every student's dream to honor their academic achievements while being surrounded by the visual reminder of the brutality inflicted upon their peers who will be barred from graduating this year. Perhaps most offensively, Safiq ponders the role of a university in contributing to better outcomes in the Middle East. Given her actions, by better outcomes, she must mean the increasing support and wealth of the genocidal state of so-called Israel and the complete annihilation of the people of Palestine. She's made it abundantly clear she does not care about the liberation of Palestinians nor even the liberal platitude of peace in the region. No, Safiq, like any other imperialist lackey, only wants to perpetuate the system to increase her power and wealth. Ah, yes. This picture is probably going to go in, like, history. Honestly. And a lot of people were taking pictures of it, too. This is what the students want us to see. April 30th, an infamous day for brutality against student protesters. The Free Palestine movement in Colombia was not the only student escalation to suffer from extreme violence Tuesday night. Brutal police action and genocide supporting counter-protesters incited violence on campuses across the country. The CUNY encampment on 139th in Amsterdam was broken down by cops, including the notoriously brutal SRG unit. They raided the camp, pushing students to the ground and forcibly ripping off hijabs. Students were kettled by cops and pepper sprayed by their own public safety outside the administrative building. 173 total students were arrested from both outside and inside the encampment, including a group of CUNY students who were occupying the administration building. NYPD refused to let legal observers or medics into the building as they conducted arrests, despite the fact that many students were severely injured. Injuries included broken teeth, ribs, and ankles. On the West Coast, students at the UCLA encampment were attacked by Zionist agitators who came with fireworks, sticks, and clubs. Zionists shot fireworks into the camp and beat Palestinian students bloody. They hurled genocidal statements calling for a second Nakab, and kicking a Palestinian student repeatedly while shouting dehumanizing racial slurs. Several pro-Palestinian protesters had head wounds. The Zionists attacked the camp for several hours while riot police called to the scene simply stood and watched. Once again, it has been proven that the police state protects only those who uphold its same white supremacist values. As of Wednesday evening, LAPD brought snipers to campus, following in the footsteps of Ohio State and Indiana University. While chanting Free Palestine gets students classified as terrorists, suspended, and labeled a threat to campus safety, Zionists gleefully attacked their classmates with no repercussions and no congressional investigations regarding genocidal, anti-Palestine hate speech and violence. This disgusting behavior will be excused and largely ignored by the monopoly media because those who attack the UCLA camp support the imperialist status quo. Fascists in Congress will continue to fund Israel and its genocidal army. They are happy to see such heinous acts because it makes their job of dismantling and harming the pro-Palestinian movement that much easier. Nevertheless, the student Intifada remains steadfast in support of Palestinian liberation. No amount of police, administrative, or Zionist violence will deter us. Hundreds gather to honor Hens Hall following brutal police sweep. Last night, protesters gathered on Amsterdam Avenue and chanted outside of Hens Hall slogans like Hens Hall forever and Gaza calls, Columbia falls were projected on the side of the building where the student banners once hung. These protesters are a blazing reminder that the university that they will not be deterred. That we will not be deterred. They can call in riot police and arrest our comrades, but we will always come back. Long live Palestine! Long live the Palestine National Resistance. Free Palestine from the river to the sea within our timeline. Lifetime. Fucking Christ. Glory to all our martyrs. So, yeah. That's what they're saying. And the last thing I want to show you is the actual demands. So you can see clearly what they're actually asking for. That is being labeled as anti-Semitic and, violent. Demands. Number 1, financial divestment. Divest all of Colombia's finances, including the endowment, from companies and institutions that profit from Israel's apartheid, genocide and occupation in Palestine. Ensure accountability by increasing transparency around financial investments. Number 2, academic boycott. Sever academic ties with Israeli universities, including the Global Center in Tel Aviv, the dual degree program with Tel Aviv University, and all study abroad programs, fellowships, and research collaborations with the Israeli academic institutions. 3. Stop the displacement. No land grabs, whether in Harlem, Pekong, or Palestine. Cease expansion. Provide reparations and support housing for low-income Harlem residents. No development by Colombia without real community control. Oh, so this is more, it's actually more than just the Palestine stuff. I mean, New York is getting even more gentrified lately. That is for sure. No policing on campus. In the targeted repression of Palestinian students and their allies on and off campus, including through university disciplinary processes. processes, defund public safety, and disclose and sever all ties with NYPD. Number 5, in the silence. Release a public statement calling for an immediate, permanent ceasefire in Gaza, denouncing the ongoing genocidal campaign against the Palestinian people, and call on government officials to do so too. It's only 5. It's really short. This is like the shortest thing I've read today. It's not even a lot. I mean, okay, in terms of like the actual capital that Colombia will lose, the main one is the financial divestment. That's gonna throw a lot of their shit off. And of course they don't want that. They, line their pockets and whatnot. So that one's gonna be the hardest. But I feel like at the same time, if say they did 2 through 5, but didn't do 1, 5 would hold no real teeth if they're still, financially engaging with it. So that's something to think about. Whew. All right, it was only 3 hours. It was only 3 hours. 2 hours and 45 minutes. 2 hours and 45 minutes of talking about this. That wasn't too much. That wasn't too political. That was fine, right? If anyone needs some aftercare, we're gonna take a 15-minute break. You get some water, do whatever you need to do, and then you can and then when we come back, I'll be playing this cool retro game about a giant robot cop. Let's see. I do think that there is a bail fund, I think. Because I want to give people some sort of resource for helping if they can. Let me see. Wow, they even have a form that's like supposed to help people who need legal assistance. That's pretty cool. This isn't what you call aftercare. This is like a break and then kick it in the game. What's the definition of gentrification? The process whereby the character of a poor urban area is changed by wealthier people moving in, improving housing, and attracting new businesses, typically displacing current inhabitants in the process. Thank you, Nova. That's actually yes. Like, for real, for real. I'm glad I have so many smart cookies in chat. Okay, so I found one. Okay, national bail funds by state. I'm gonna put this in my YouTube chat. I'll put it in the description after the video. And I'll also post it in the Discord. Because life is a challenge. All right. I don't know what we're gonna talk about next week, but continue to look out for our Friday streams because we probably will continue to do like 2 to 3 hours of chatting about something important to us. Not always super current events type stuff, but something. So thank you for your time and attention, and free Palestine.